Okay, hi baby. So here's what we have going on. So I am going to show you how to make 3 different meals. The way I have this set up is I bought stuff to make 3 meals, spending less than $15. So that breaks down to be about $5 a meal. All 3 of them are chicken dishes. So what you're first going to need to do is go out and buy a rotisserie chicken. I was able to find my rotisserie chicken for about $6. It was like $5.50 or something like that. The rest of it is simple, basic vegetables and a few odds and ends that you should have around the house, salt, pepper, that kind of stuff. So the very first thing that we're going to want to do, and I've already done this, is you're going to break down the chicken. You're going to take 3 bowls, and you're going to separate all the breast meat into here. So that's the meat that's on the very top of the chicken. Separate the breast meat. Take the meat from the rest of the bird then, anything else that you can find. So that'll be like the legs. I would leave the wings alone because there's not really enough meat in there, it's not worth it, but peel some off the legs, some off the thighs. The bottom of the chicken will have a little bit of meat on there. You're not going to get too much off of there, but you got that. So those are the real big things. And then everything else that's left. Toss the skin. You don't really need the skin, and that's going to cause some problems later. It's not bad if it goes in there. It's just you're going to have to pick it off later because you can't really eat it. But you're going to take just the regular bones. There's the thigh, there's the breast, there's the chicken bone is what you're looking for. So you're looking just for the rest of everything else that's on there. White meat, breast meat, bones, everything else that's left over, as much skin that you can get it off, and then dark meat, okay? So the very first thing that we're gonna do is I'm gonna take I'm using a regular skillet and just filling it up with water. Fill it up, fill it 3/4 of the way up. Use your best judgment on this only because you can always take off and you can always add depending. The first thing that we're going to be making is chicken soup. The chicken soup in itself is going to be delicious. You can have that just as a soup by itself, but you're also going to be able to use it in one of the other ingredients. So you're going to put in the water to boil on there, and then you're going to add, I would say probably a tablespoon of salt. You don't have to super measure that. A good tablespoon, maybe a nice heavy pinch. The thing with salt is you can always add more, you can't add less, okay? So then you're going to take your middle pot, the one that's got all your bones and the leftover stuff and the junk. You're going to put that in there, just drop it right in the cold water and bring it up to a boil. So while that's coming up to a boil, the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to get celery, you're going to get carrots, you are going to get potatoes, parsley, a little bit of garlic. Let's grab an onion. Now the nice thing about this is that ingredients don't matter too much because you're going for a lot of the flavor. So let's take a look at our carrots. I bought these carrots in bulk. Bulk carrots ran me, boy, I don't know, the full thing, I have 4 big carrots in here, probably ran me about $1, $1.50. So they're really, really inexpensive. Let's grab a garbage bowl, like we used last time. Cut off the head and the tail of the carrots. And then you don't even have to peel these. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And you're gonna chop them up here into, I don't know, what is that, 1/4 inch size? So think of it about like that, 1/4 inch. That's a really good size that you're gonna wanna do. And you're gonna do that for 2 or 3 carrots, again, the exact measurements don't matter. Do you like carrot? Add more carrot. Do you not like carrot? Add less carrot. The really nice thing about recipes like this is it's very individualized. What do you like? How much do you like? What kind of flavors do you like? You know, if you go to a restaurant and you see that they put other things in their soup, add it in there. You know, I like to add parsnip into mine. I think I like the taste of parsnip. Leeks are really good to add in there. Leeks have a real strong onion flavor, but I think that that's really fantastic to add in there. So again, it's kind of up to you what you like and what you want. And we forgot to wash these. Wash your carrots first. Wash all of your stuff first before you do it. I'm just going to put these into a colander and run my some water real fast because I wasn't thinking. All right. And then these go in the pot with chicken. Done. Done. Next, we're going to take the celery. Now, when it comes to your celery, for the other recipe, one of the other recipes that we're making, we are going to take 2 stalks of celery and put it aside. We're going to use those a little bit later. Okay? Take the very, very top of the celery, just the very, very top of it, cut that off. Don't forget to wash. Now, when it comes to the recipe that we're making, I would suggest using an even amount of carrots and celery. So we used 3 carrots, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 pieces of celery for this. Now, when you look at your celery, we're going to peel off the rest of the celery here. We can save these for some other things. Maybe throw some peanut butter on there, something like that. But this, the middle part here is called the heart of the celery. And this has just a ton of flavor in it, and it's super good to cook with. So we're going to take and just cut out the heart here real fast, leaves and everything. The leaves are where all the flavor's in. Don't use the stummy part. It's hard, it tastes awful. You don't want to use that here. So I'm going to take that heart, take the heart of the celery, and that goes in your soup. Next, take the 3 celery stalks for the 3 carrots, and you are going to cut off the very end of it, the white part on the very bottom. We're going to get rid of that. And we're going to cut off the very tip and get rid of that. And the only reason is because that sometimes it's kind of tough, kind of stringy, doesn't taste great. And the next thing, all you're going to do is you're going to do this in roughly the same size as your carrots. Maybe a little bit smaller just because it looks nicer, but you don't have to. You can make them huge. You can make them small. You can finely cut these. You can dice these. You can cut them down the middle to make them super small. You can cut them at an angle to make it look rustic, kind of like we did last week with the onions. You know, it's kind of up to you. When I get down to the bottom here, the little pieces are kind of wide, so I cut those in half first and then cut them. Again, that's more for aesthetics because I'm bougie like that. And that's it. And then we'll take these 3 and these go in the soup. Okay. Next, we're going to take a potato. Wash the potato. We learned 2 more mistakes. And notice I'm not peeling anything either. You know, you don't need to peel these stuff when you're going for soups, only because of the way that they break down. And again, we are going to take 1 whole potato. I'm just going to dice this up super fast here. Nothing special. Cut it in half in the middle, cut in half one more time. And because we're going for both texture and flavor, it doesn't matter that these aren't all the right size. Some of them are going to break down to become kind of small little bits, and some of them are going to stay big so that we have actual big pieces of potato. And again, these are going to be cut roughly the same size. What is that, 1/4 inch? Something like that. Like, again, same rule stance. Cut them how you want, how you like, what you think works nice for you. I have a big pile of vegetables here, so I'm going to stir them around a little bit. Okay. Onion. 1 onion. Now this time I am going to peel the onion. So the funny thing is when you're making a vegetable soup, now we're making obviously a chicken soup or a chicken stock. When you're making a vegetable soup, you leave the peels on because there's a bunch of onion flavor in there, but there's a lot of straining that you have to do when you do that. You're going to strain off the cooked vegetables, and then you're going to recook it. It's a little bit more of a process. Still super easy, but it's a little bit more involved. We'll do vegetable soup another day. All right, so now we just have 2 peeled onions. And again, like we did last week, we're going to cut them kind of thick. Not as thick as we did last week, but again, if you want them that thick, you can. As they cook, they're going to break down. I'm going to do them probably a bit thicker than we did last week. So we're going to do about that size. Surprise, this goes in the soup. All right. I like it by a sprig of parsley. Parsley is going to run you 40 cents, something like that. Break off a handful. Literally just a handful. You can cut it up if you want to. You can dice it up if you want to. Let's just do a 1, 2, 3, 4 cut. Literally, we're going to still have whole pieces of parsley in there. And that goes in the soup. All right. A little bit of pepper. And then I think what's really good is, I think we're going to add a little bit of garlic. Let's do like that. You know, the prawns of a fork. Maybe, what is that, a teaspoon of garlic? And if you happen to want it more pungent flavored, add a little more garlic. You want it a little less pungent flavored, a little less garlic. And that's it. Put it on the oven and put it on the stove, and we're going to let it simmer. You're going to want to let it simmer for at least an hour because you kind of want everything to kind of get married and good looking there. You don't want it to boil. I have mine set at a 5, which is like a medium-low heat. Okay, so that's, you know, fine there for that. But you just kind of want it to blend together and cook. The longer, the better. You can do this. If you have a crock pot, throw all that stuff in a crock pot and let it cook overnight. And the next morning, you got soup. You know, that's a really nice way of doing it. If you don't have a crock pot, you can put it right on the skillet on the stove. I use a large wok. You can put it on the stove and it cooks just as fine that way. I like that as well. Super versatile, super easy. All right. So while that soup is cooking, let's move on to our next dish. So for the next dish, we're going to take those two pieces of celery that we had, cut the bottoms off, cut the tops off. Now for this one, we are going to be making a really nice chicken salad sandwich, or chicken salad that you can use on a sandwich, that you can use on crackers. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can use this. So we're going to take the celery that we have. We're probably only going to need one. I kept out a second one just in case. Okay. I cut it in half, took the two halves aside and cut that one in there. So now I have 4 individual pieces. Because for this one, we're going to want the celery to be a little bit thinner. So this one, we're going to cut it much, much smaller. We're going to almost slice it so that it is maybe 1/8 of an inch. Little bitty tiny guys there. The reason is because we want the crunch on there of it. We want the flavor of the celery on there, but we don't want to have huge pieces of celery that we're eating. So we're going to cut this up here real quick. And again, because this is a chicken salad, one of the things that you can do is that manipulate this any way you like. You like extra celery, put in more celery. Hate celery, pull out the celery. You can do watercress, would be really good as a nice crunch. You can do a carrot. You could do a carrot there if you want to do a carrot instead. You want something though kind of vegetable-y and crunchy, so you can add a little bit of taste and flavor in there. Now this one is going to be ready to eat almost immediately, but it is significantly better if we can wait till the next day. The next day for me is when I think it becomes even better because you let those flavors kind of mingle. I ended up using almost the entire thing of celery. I left off a little tiny bit of it here. Okay, so we take our chicken breast now. So this is now the big pieces of chicken breast that are in there. You get a couple ways you can do it. You can dice it up. So you can literally take your chicken, put it on there, cut it up here, put it up here, and you have big pieces of chunked chicken, you know, like that. So you could do it that way. You can do it that way. You can take the chicken and you can kind of crumble it in your hands. So it's more like a shredded chicken. That's kind of the way I like mine, so I'm going to do it that way. But it doesn't matter whatsoever. Break up some of those little tiny cubes I just cut in there. That's going to be weird. Now, the nice part about getting these pre-cooked chickens is that they're not super big, so you're not going to have a ton of leftovers on the bone. You're not going to have a ton of leftovers on there, but you can use the entire chicken, and they're cheap. And you don't have to worry about baking a chicken, which really and truly isn't difficult. It's just time consuming. You could absolutely buy a chicken and do this exact same thing, put it in the oven, bake it at 350 for a few hours. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is that then you're going to have to stay home and watch it. And you're going to have to take it out, let it cool. And the whole time you're letting it cool, making sure that you're not, going below a certain temperature so it doesn't get salmonella and, stuff like that. You can absolutely do that. It's kind of a fun thing if you're having people over. Making a chicken is a nice and easy thing to do. It's super simple. But for what we're doing here today, for soup and for chicken salad, and the third recipe that we're making is we're going to be making a chicken and dumpling, which we're going to serve either over mashed potatoes or rice. I think it'd be really nice over mashed potatoes, but you can do rice for that too. But we'll do that one here in a quick second. And again, these are just 2 chicken breasts. A lot of people use the canned chickens, honey. And you can go buy the can of like pre-chickened chicken. It's kind of like using tuna and tuna salad. You can. It's not really my thing. I think this is virtually as easy to do. And I think it tastes 1,000 times better because it has the not canned chicken flavor, if that tells you anything. Now, this meal that we're making here, the meals that we're making, will be good for 2 or 3 people, depending on how much you eat. Be a little bit much for 1. But everything here except for the chicken salad freezes really well. So you can take your chicken soup, and we're going to use part of that as chicken stock for our chicken and dumplings. Okay, and then you can take the rest, you can have it as a soup. You can boil up some noodles and put with the noodles, or you can freeze it. You could do, again, chicken and rice would be really good with that. But all this freezes well, so you can have that. All right, so here's our chicken. You can see it's all shredded up, super nice. All right, to this, we are going to add our celery. And again, add more celery if you like more celery. A little bit of garlic. Okay. And again, that was probably about a half a teaspoon I just put in there. I kind of eyeballed it because, you know, this isn't getting cooked. And it's important that when you are not cooking garlic, you understand that the flavor is going to change. So uncooked garlic, just chopped garlic in something's super, super strong. You can really taste the garlic. When you cook it, that flavor really kind of mellows out. So you can just add more of it there to get a really mild flavor. But like this, we're using it raw, so we want to do that. We're going to put another onion in there. I'm just using yellow onions. You can use white onions, red onions for this would be good. Not the soup. You don't want to put a red onion in a soup. It's a little sulfury. It'll be really powerful if you did that. But you can use white, yellow, anything like that for this. So for this one, same rule when it comes to raw garlic. So with this one, I cut off the very side of the onion. I took a little piece of onion, probably about this big. Again, it's to your taste. So I don't want a ton of onion on here. When this is done, this is probably going to come out to be, maybe 1/3 of a cup. Okay. I made little slits in there, and now I'm going to dice it. And I'm going to dice it super fine because having a big chunk of raw onion in your chicken salad is no bueno. Make sure it's diced up real nice and fine here. All right. That goes in chicken salad. All right. I also, this was a little expensive. This ran me about $3, so you may or may not want that in there, depending on what you're doing with it. How about cranberries? And some cranberries in here are really, really fantastic. And it adds a little bit of sweetness to it. So, you know what you like. I'm going to add a nice handful and a half. What is that? I'm probably going to do about half a cup, 1/3 of a cup. Just enough so you can get a taste of it. Use those cranberries for something else later. Beautiful. All right. Now we're going to add our relish. And if you notice, I'm not measuring stuff. I'm not saying it's a half a cup of this, it's a full cup of that. We might do that a little bit later, like when we're doing the dumplings and stuff, but for right now, it's what do you like? I added the relish. I added a healthy amount of relish, probably about a tablespoon-ish, you know, not a lot, because it's chicken salad, so you don't want, again, you don't want to be overpowered with that. That's what I would add, though, is to your amount, maybe about a tablespoon. And now we're going to grab our mayonnaise, which I already took out. So you're going to add your mayonnaise now. This is going to be to your desired thickness. So you're going to want what this is going to look like. So I would start off with a nice dollop. Okay. And mix it together. And that is way too dry. So we're going to add a little bit more. You know the other thing you could add on here, if you wanted to, if you had it, sour cream would be good in here, like almost like a 50-50 mix of sour cream and mayonnaise would be really, really nice. Oh, you know what we have? We have a little bit of Dijonaise, a little bit of Dijon mustard. You can use a little bit of yellow mustard too, would be really fantastic. You could use just the plain mayonnaise. Don't use Miracle Whip. Miracle Whip is nasty. Okay, add a little bit in there, just a little tiny bit, just for flavor. Okay. If we don't have any sour cream, but you could easily put sour cream in here, that would be really fantastic. And now this part is to your liking. Some people like it kind of dryish, so it's just barely bound together. Some people like it swimming in mayonnaise, so it's more like a chicken mayonnaise soup. I'm more of an in the middle kind of a guy. So I'm going to give this a a little bit of salt, and salt again is to your tastes. Do maybe a healthy teaspoon of it. Add a little bit of pepper to it. Again, to your taste. What do you like? And then, oh, you know what else we can add to this that'll be really good? Remember last week we bought that parsley? Still have a little bit of parsley left over. Let's add a little bit of parsley to this. And a little bit of parsley on there. And that's it. That's all there is. You know, you can make the flavor a little bit different. You can add a little bit of olive oil would be nice to it. You can add a little bit of olive oil. Not like vegetable oil, but definitely olive oil. Maybe a little bit of lemon juice would be really nice to it. Again, maybe a teaspoon of lemon juice, maybe a teaspoon of olive oil. It just kind of changes the flavor a little bit if you want to try something new and different. I'm going to put another squirt of Dijonaise in there because I happen to love Dijonaise. We're going to put a little bit more of a squirt in there. Right. I'm going to mix this up and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So now, I'm going to take this, how wonderful that is. So now you've got a chicken salad that's got cranberries in there, and it's got celery in there. The Dijonnaise is going to be really good in there. That's fantastic. Put that in the refrigerator till it gets cold. You can eat it straight away. Or what you can do is you can leave it to stay for a day or so the flavors kind of mingle. It'll be really great on there. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to be making is we're going to be making the chicken and dumplings. Now for that one, we need one special ingredient. It has not done cooking yet. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to pause here real quick and let the stock, the chicken soup, come up to temperature. Let that boil away for a little bit. I'll come back here in a second and we're going to use that to make the chicken. Okay, Monkey, we are back. Okay, so it has been a couple hours now. So it's been about 2.5, 3 hours. And I've been letting the soup sit on the pot and boil. Not boil, just a low simmer. I did have to put a little bit extra water in there about halfway through. And that was just to kind of keep the water level at the same level. You may have to do that in order to make sure that it doesn't all evaporate. Again, low temperature, and if you feel like you want to add a little bit extra water, you can. If you do add the extra water, let it go for just a little bit longer, just to kind of infuse that flavor back in there. Otherwise, it should be great. Okay, so here's where we are right now. So I brought everything over here. I've started straining it a little bit, and basically what I'm doing right now is I am straining out the extra vegetables that are in here and straining out all the bones. I'm using a hand strainer to do it. So you can use a hand strainer to get them all out of there. The other thing that you can do is if you have a colander, you can strain it out using a colander and just kind of move through. But you want to separate out all the bones and kind of the yuckiness in there. And you're going to end up tossing that. And you're going to keep and separate off all of the potatoes, carrots, that kind of stuff. The other option that you have, if you don't want to do that, is you can strain everything, toss everything, vegetables, chicken, the whole works, just keep the broth. And then you can always chop up another carrot, another piece of celery, another potato, and put that in there fresh, and just boil them fresh in there for the next time. For the next time you have it, you'll have to cook it for probably 45 minutes ish after that to soften those vegetables up. You can do it either way, works just as fine. It's whatever you want to do. So now I'm going to take all these vegetables. I'm going to put these vegetables back in here because I want the vegetables for this. So the vegetables are going to go in here. Now at this point, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to taste your soup. And you want to make sure that it tastes good. This is where you're going to add your little bit of salt. You're going to add your pepper onto it. This is where you're going to add any other things that you might want in there. You could add some garlic powder, put some onion powder, maybe a little bit of heat. You could put some cayenne in there. Anything to kind of spice it up and to flavor it up a little bit, but that's where you are now. This soup is now ready to go, okay? You can freeze it, you can put it in the refrigerator, or you can eat it direct from right now. You have the option of putting it over some rice, making like a chicken rice. You have the option of putting it over some noodles and doing some chicken noodles with it. But other than that, it is fine, set, and good right now to go. And with the amount of water that we have for this stock pot, for this pan that I made here, is going to give us probably about 4 servings of soup, maybe a little bit more if you're serving it with rice, maybe a little bit less if you're just drinking the broth by itself. So soup is all done and good, and we should be good to go from there. So the last thing that we're going to make, the last part that we're going to make, we're going to use a little bit of this broth in here, and we're going to make chicken and dumplings, okay? So let's grab another. Okay, so from here, we are going to take and ladle out a few cups of the chicken broth. I would say you're going to want to use 2 cups per serving. And the amount of chicken that we have from the dark meat is going to be enough for probably about 2 servings. So we're going to put probably about 4, maybe 5 cups in here. And I'm going to just take and grab a little bit of the vegetables that are in here. So I'm going to add a little bit of the carrots. I think that's going to be really good with our chicken dumplings. Just a little bit, you don't need to go with a ton. All right. Put that on there. We're going to take chicken soup. We're going to put that off to the side here real quick. All right, fantastic. So now we have our chicken broth. Right. We added a little bit of the carrots and potatoes, celery, a little bit of the onion got put in there. More flavor. If you don't, you don't. It's fine. For this recipe, it's fine. So what we're going to do here real quick, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. The easy way to do it would be to drop a can of cream of mushroom or cream of garlic soup into here, and then you're good to go for there. We're going to do it a little bit differently, but that's kind of a shortcut for you if you don't want to do that. So for 5 cups here, what I am going to do is you are going to take 2 cups of flour, and you're going to put 2 cups of flour into a bowl. To that, you're going to add maybe about 2 teaspoons of salt. And you are going to add 2/3 of a cup of, I like half and half. You can also use heavy cream, you can use milk. To be honest with you, you could use some water if you really want to. I think the cream adds more flavor to it. And 2 in there. Keep that out because it needs a little bit more liquid. You can add some more liquid. And this is just regular AP flour. And we're going to mix this around. It's all-purpose flour, you know that. And we're going to mix this around until we get kind of a tight ball. Right now I'm just using kind of a fork. This is super dry, so I'm going to add a little bit more milk into here. So we don't want this to be, we're not making a wet dough, you know, so this isn't going to be like a red dough, so you don't want like that. But you also don't want, you know, dry bits of flour just kind of laying in there. So now, let me show you here. Let's kind of beat this with our hands a little bit. There we have what we have. And I'm just kind of getting all the last little bits of flour in here. All right, so if you look here, we have kind of a doughy dough. It's definitely not wet, it's a dough, okay? It rips easily, sticks a little bit to my hands, but again, it's not like running through my fingers or anything like that. So what we're gonna wanna do is we don't wanna really knead this because we're not making a dough. We're just gonna kind of make sure that all the liquid is incorporated in with the flour. Okay, that's important. All right, so the reason that I did that first is because now we want this to rest for a little bit. All right, what we're doing right now is we're making sure that all the flour in there gets what's called hydrogenated, maybe? No. Make sure all the flour is getting wet. And that makes sure that it doesn't, parts of it aren't dry and lumpy on the inside. Okay. grab this soup so you can So if you want, what we have here is a can of cream of mushroom soup with roasted garlic. I think this would be perfect for you to use. The other thing that you can do is that you can add a couple tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. But let's take the shortcut route. We take the shortcut route. We're going to take the cream of mushroom with roasted garlic. I think this is going to be the easiest and fastest way to do this. Now, for 5 cups of soup, we're probably going to use most of a whole can. And it is okay if you do not like mushroom. You can substitute this with I'm going to start off with about 2/3 of a can in here. You can actually substitute this with cream of chicken if you wanted to. You just kind of want that creaminess to be in there. That's what's really important to this, because this is going to be a really thick, really super thick, almost like a stew. I'm going to start off with that 2/3. I think that's going to look pretty good, but I'm going to save the rest in here just in case I decide later on that I want it. Okay, so there is 2 real ways to make this. You can either do the slow cooker way if you happen to have a crock pot. This is a fantastic crock pot recipe. What you're going to do is you're going to throw everything into the crock pot and you are good to go. It's just going to kind of sit and go. The other way is the way that we're going to do it. Is you are going to get kind of a casserole dish like this. You're going to take your chicken. You're going to break your chicken up in here. You don't want it shredded. You just want to kind of make sure that it's not in huge pieces. Now, while we were taking our little break, I kept this in the refrigerator because you don't want to leave this stuff out on the counter. So I'm just breaking it into bite-sized pieces. We don't want to dice it or shred it or anything like that, like we did with the chicken salad. We just want this not as huge, ginormous pieces to sit in our mouth. So I'm just kind of breaking it down a little bit here. Now, once this is all broken up, your option there is going to be take this whole thing and freeze it. You can throw this in the freezer and you are good to go until you are ready to have it. You can take it and put it in the refrigerator for a couple of days. You could have it a couple of days from now. That's really good. Or you can heat it directly once it comes out of the oven. Whichever is better for you. You can also do this on the stove, and a lot of places call for cooking this on the stove. I happen to think this is better as a baked dish. I think it's better as a baked dish, just because it gives those dumplings some time to kind of merge and mellow in there and kind of come up to flavor. All right. So now, kind of mix all this around a little bit. Let's add everything in here. I'm using a ladle, but you can obviously just pour it in there. It will save some time. You want to make sure that you have the top kind of 1/3 of this, not 1/3, maybe 1/8 on here left open. Okay, so because you're going to add your dumplings on top. All right. take our dumpling dough. It should be light. At this point now, it's no longer sticking. It's been kind of sitting and resting for 5 minutes maybe. Again, it doesn't have to rise. It's not a risen dough or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this out a little bit, kind of like the way you make a snake when you were in preschool. Perfect. Now, I'm going to take, and we're going to cut pieces of this. These are the size pieces that you're going to have, you know? And the nice part is you can't do this wrong. You put this as any size on there that you want. I like maybe quarter sized, which I think is a really, really super nice size. What's going to happen now is these are going to steam in there. Hi, James.
Hi.
You're on camera. All right. These are going to steam on here a little bit. Okay. So you're going to add these directly to the top and kind of just put them in there. They're going to sink. They're heavier. They're not going to float on top. What you don't want to do is overcrowd this because these are going to expand a little bit. Now, if you like smaller dumplings, you can add smaller dumplings onto this, okay? If you like larger dumplings, what I'm going to suggest that you do is I would use a bigger pan than this, a bigger corning dish than this, and to give yourself more room. So I think these are a good size and a good amount. Okay. We're going to do one more. Okay. So that was 2 cups of flour, 2/3 plus a little bit of half and half or milk. I let it sit, and then it went in there with a can of soup and the broth. I am now going to take this and I'm going to put it in the oven to bake. I'm going to bake it at about 300, 350. 300 is a good temperature. You could do 300, 325. Just kind of depends on how long you want it to sit for. But you want to do it for close to about an hour. Once you do it for the hour there, when they come out, those will be fully cooked. After it cooks, you're going to want to let it sit for a little bit, okay? And after it sits for a little bit, those are going to become nice and tender, and the stew itself is going to thicken up. Now, the last thing that we are going to do, hold on 1 second, is we are going to bake this, and I will be back in just 1 second to take it out of the oven for you. Okay, Monkey. So we are back after a little bit of a pause. So it's been sitting in the oven now for about an hour and 10 minutes, cooking on its own. The other thing that I did then is I took that russet potato, I diced it up, and I put it in a pot of boiling water until a knife was just enough to go through it, about 10 minutes. 10-15 minutes is what it's going to take. So I take the diced up potatoes, we'll put them in a bowl here, like this, small dice, nothing too big. And to that, we are going to add a little bit of, I'm using heavy cream because I happen to have it, but you can also use milk, the rest of that half and half, the cream, anything that you have. And I use a couple of nice generous pats of butter and a good pour of the milk or cream. Now, depending on how long you've cooked these, depending on what you like the consistency of your potatoes to be, really depends on how much of the cream you're going to add in there. That's another thing that you're going to kind of eye. I'm using a potato masher here. You can easily just use a fork just as well. And the idea is to mash them up. And you're going for an even consistency. Now, I happen to very much like the skins to be left on my potatoes. I happen to really very much like the taste of skins in my mashed potatoes. Some people don't. You don't have to leave that on there, but you can. These are looking a little dry. They're a little crumbly, so I'm going to add a splash more milk to mine. And nobody's ever complained. Nobody's ever complained about there being too much butter, so we're going to add a little bit more butter too. Perfect. These are going to be really super creamy and delicious for you. Wonderful. Now, when you're cooking potatoes, always put salt in the water because it'll actually mean that you're going to have to salt it less. But this is where we're going to be adding salt to it. And again, salt is one of those things that you're going to do to taste, depending if you like a lot of salt or a little bit of salt. I personally think potatoes need a lot of salt. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and get these. Onto our plate. So we're going to put a healthy dollop of mashed potatoes on there. And again, this is one potato. Quite honestly, I kind of overserved here. But this is going to be one potato, one mashed potato, and it was a large russet. So one mashed potato is going to be good for about 2 people to have mashed potatoes. All right. Let's go ahead and pull out the chicken. So if you look, those dumplings have really formed nicely on the top there. They're still soft, but still a little tough on top. So if you like yours a little thicker, what you're going to do is kind of mix these in a little bit, and as it cools, it'll thicken up on its own. That's a kind of a really nice way of doing it, is mixing it up more. Some carrots in here and some more chicken. Perfect. Look at that, looks delicious. So, that's it, honey. There are 4 recipes for you that you can make easily with just a chicken and a few easy ingredients from the store. And let's see what we've got here. We've got our chicken salad. We've got our soup, both with a little bit of noodle I put in there and with the rice. And then we've got the mashed potatoes and dumplings. So remember, all in all, this ended up costing me about $15, call it $18 when you add the pasta and the rice in there, but way less than 20 bucks for everything that we got here. So good luck. I wish you the best of cooking.